Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today. Thank you for joining us. This promises to be a great presentation, a great webinar. I want to say thank you to all the good people at FX Street for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Steven Primo. I am the president and founder of Specialist Trading. And for those of you who may be new to the presentation of the webinars I give for FX Street, and you're not familiar with my website, Specialist Trading is your premier online source for education and trading. In trading the stock, the E-mini, and as you'll see today, in trading the Forex markets. So when you want education, we want you to come to Specialist Trading because we provide you with 35 plus years of education that I've accumulated in my trading career. Now today promises to be a great webinar. As I stated, we are going to be speaking about the proper way to calculate your Forex position size. And this is probably my most requested webinar in terms of emails I received to repeat. I have given this presentation before for FX Street. I believe it was roughly about 6 months ago. And out of all the presentations, I've given some strategy techniques. I've given some trading clues and things about risk management and how to view the market. This is probably the one webinar where I get the most requests to repeat. I think it's because there is some type of formula or mathematical calculation involved. Very simple, very easily. But I think that most people really want to grasp this. So this is a great presentation. There is going to be a little bit of math involved, but trust me, it's extremely simple. I'm not that great at math myself, so if I can do it, you can do it. And we're going to be speaking about the proper way to calculate your Forex position sizing today. So many traders, whether they are beginners or novices or experienced traders that have been trading for a long time, really do not calculate their position sizing correctly. And this is what will lead to losses or to not really getting your trading where it should be, or you're not getting along to the next level. So I'm going to teach you a way on how to properly calculate your Forex position sizing today. But as always, before we begin, I ask that you please take a moment to view our disclaimer. I'm going to show you a lot of performance results today using this particular method, but we're required to tell you that we can in no way guarantee that any of these results will be repeated in the future. So please take a moment to view our disclaimer. And while you're doing that, I'd also like to make some other announcements. If you've attended my presentations in the past, you know that I like to keep my questions till the very end. I know other educators and other presenters like to have this type of interaction going, but my presentations are more like a classroom. You're coming to learn. I'm giving you free information. So I want you to absorb it properly. And so I will have a question and answer period, but I like to leave it till the very end. This is not really a type of thing where we take the questions and answers while the presentation is in progress. Now, one of the reasons why I want to wait till the very end as well is we will have some type of interaction. So I will be asking you questions also at the very end because I will be asking for your input and how to calculate some examples. I'm going to be giving you this calculation today on how to come up with your correct position sizing, and then we're going to do some work as well with you, so I want you to give me your answers. So don't worry, you will be a part of this presentation as well. But if you have any questions along the way, I know some people may have just attended, please remember to save them and ask at the very end. We'll have plenty of time in this presentation to ask questions. As well, if by some chance you happen to come up with a question once we've concluded, don't worry, I will give you our email address as well as a phone number where you can call up and have any questions answered, okay? So as a special favor, please wait till the very end to ask. Now, I'd like to start off also by mentioning that FX Street has been so gracious as to give us a microsite, and this is the link to the microsite to any and all information that you need to know. So as I stated, if you want to ask questions about our websites or our strategies, rather than ask them at the end of this presentation or during the presentation, you can go to the link here that FX Street has provided for us. This is a link to our microsite, which gives you a lot more information. Now, I realize this may be a little bit long to copy down here, so we've shortened it down to this small abbreviated link. You can still type in this small abbreviated link, which we will give you also at the end of the presentation as well. And this takes you to the microsite that FX Street has provided for us. So a lot of your questions can be answered here, where we talk about our strategies, and you can also find out about complete course descriptions as well, okay? And a little bit about myself as you see the picture there. So once again, if you have questions, that's the place to go to the microsite as well. All right, so let's start out, and I've shown this slide before, but I really think it hits home. This was an article in the Los Angeles Times some time ago where I trade and where I live, but it really hits home because it really speaks, of tremendous importance, where it talks about the Forex trading, and it says the Forex currency trading is easy. In fact, it's an easy way to lose money. More and more Americans are dabbling in currency trading and losing in spectacular fashion. Experts say the structure of the currency markets makes it hard for amateurs to beat the house. Okay, now, in a sense, I agree with this statement, but in another sense, I do not. First of all, it is difficult, but in my opinion, the reason why foreign currency trading is so difficult, the reason why we have webinars for education and why you come here to learn more, is because in my 35 years of trading, most traders get in their own way. They're the ones who are responsible for making their trading difficult. I've said this many, many times, but for some reason, we've been taught, or trained to believe that the more complicated you make things, the simpler, or I should say, the easier it will be to make money. It's actually the opposite. The simpler you make your trading plan, the simpler your process is, the more valid your trading will be, and you'll actually have an easier road to success. So most traders get in their own way. We apply way too many things on our current trading plan. We have too many indicators. We're too caught up in trying to decipher the news and what's going on in the world. We're in too many chat rooms. We're in far too many trading rooms. We're overcomplicating things and creating this noise around our trading. So what we're trying to do, especially at specialist trading, is strip things away. We're trying to uncomplicate your trading and make it as simple as possible. As I often state, it's the easiest thing in the world to complicate your trading. Anyone can do that. Anyone trading for 2 days can complicate the trading as much as they like. But it's the most difficult thing in the world to simplify it. And this is what I teach, and this is the way I trade as well. Most of the things I trade have maybe 3 to 5 rules. I only trade maybe 1 or 2 markets at a time. I don't concern myself with news. I'm really not trying to decipher any type of news events or anything. I just look at the chart and learn to listen to what the chart is telling me. Everything I need to know is right in front of me. So this is what we're trying to do. If we strip away the things which for some reason we've been taught will make our trading successful, if we really get rid of those things, that's how we'll have more validity in our trading. So foreign currency trading is an easy way to lose money. It's correct in that statement, but we're losing money because we're getting in our own way. So my goal is to teach you how to trade with the specialist edge, which is really rooted in simplicity. Most of the strategies I trade and what I teach, as I said, have 3 to 5 rules, maybe 1 or 2 indicators. That's it. And you'll notice as you trade further and further in your career that you'll see that the people that have been trading the longest, the people that have been trading maybe 40, 50 years, really have the simplest of plans, have maybe 2 or 3 rules. They trade 1 market, but they're still trading after 40 or 50 years. It's really the people that have been trading 5 or 10 years that have these complicated, really convoluted trading agenda that are really getting in their own way, and they're making things far, far too difficult. So the traders that you really want to follow are the ones that have been trading 30, 40, 50 years down the road. All right, so here's what you're going to learn today. All right, we're going to give you 2 edges. The first edge is how to properly calculate risk. So many students that I have, so many students and clients that I mentor, even hedge funds that are members of specialist trading do not properly calculate their risk. So we're going to show you what that really is. And then we're going to show you the RPS method. This is the method I talked about, the little mathematical formula. Very simple, so don't get scared away by me saying mathematical. It's an RPS method. It's very simple. It was taught to me while I was on the floor of the exchange, while I was down there. And this is really what helps you to really properly calculate your correct position size. And then, as I stated, we will have questions and answers at the very end. Okay, so please write down any questions you may have, and then I'll answer them at the very end. All right, so let's start talking about position sizing and the insights. First of all, the first problem that gets in the way is far too many traders are undercapitalized. It doesn't matter if you're trading the large lot with Forex currencies or if you're trading a mini lot. It doesn't matter. It's all relative. So whether you're trading a large lot with only $10,000 or $15,000, or you're trading a mini lot with only $1,000 or $2,000, you have to have a little bit more capitalization. I would start off by saying anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 trading small lots, mini lots, to $25,000 to $50,000 to trading the large currency pairs. Okay, that's just a way of ensuring you that you have a cushion. It's not saying that you're going to be using that money all the time and that it's going to be tied up. It's just saying that you need to have that type of cushion to really be able to trade with proper position size. Secondly, so many traders, once again, whether they're novices, whether they're skilled pros, or whether they're just beginners, use discretion when deciding on position size. I was talking to a trader the other day someone who was interested in becoming a member, and I asked them, how do you determine how many lots to trade? And they said, well, if I've had a series of losses, I'll cut down, and sometimes if I've had too many losses, I'll actually average down and trade a lot more so I can make it back. So it was totally by a whim that they decide how many lots to be trading. And this is really the wrong thing to do. You should never use discretion, meaning something off the top of your head when deciding how many lots to trade, whether you're trading the mini lots or whether you're trading the full contract. You should never come to the plate trading that way, all right? This is why we're talking about the RPS method. This is a simple mathematical formula that must be used prior to every trade. You cannot use this while you're in the trade, while you're already in a trade and say, wow, I came up with a calculation, and you know what? I bought 2 lots too many, or I didn't buy enough lots. This is something that has to be calculated before you enter. So this is something that you need to learn. It's very simple. In fact, you'll probably all get it by the end of today's presentation. But you need to apply this method, the RPS method, mathematical formula, prior to every trade. This is how you're going to determine how many contracts or how many lots to be trading. Okay? As I said, it automatically decides how many lots to trade. And the best thing about this edge is that once you trade with this way, with this RPS method, you're adding structure. We're not complicating our trading. We're just simply adding structure, taking away the discretion, and we're taking the guesswork out of position size. Remember, what the beginners do is they use far too much discretion and guesswork in either deciding how many lots to trade and deciding also how to trade. There's too much discretion. All of our strategies of specialist trading, maybe about 25 or 30% for discretion, but we have about 65 or 70% used for our rules, our rule-based methods. So we have 70% for rules and rule-based where there is structure, and about 30% where we give you discretion. And then we teach you what you can choose from to use on your discretion. So don't just solely rely on how you feel that morning, on how, if you've had a good day, if you want to trade a lot, if you want to trade a little. Always use some structure, and the best way to have the insight into your position sizing is by using the RPS method. All right, so let's talk about risk now. We have to talk about the standard benchmark, which is the percent of capital which we want to be using. All right, so you must start with an adequate amount of capital. Once again, if you're trading large currency pairs, I would say at the bare minimum, 15 to 20, 25,000. 50,000 is really nominal. That's what you would hope for. Now I realize that's a lot of money, especially if you're beginning. You can't trade with that. You don't have that amount of capital. That's fine. Let's just reduce it. If we're trading a mini lot, let's say we should have anywhere from 3,000 to maybe 5,000. That's an adequate place to start. 10,000 would be much better. All right. Now what we want to do is use our standard benchmark for risk, and what we want to do is use this as a percentage of our account. So the percentage risk per trade will be 2%. So in other words, if we have a $10,000 account, we are only going to risk per trade 2%. This is the benchmark. And this is something that's pretty much used industry-wide. Many traders, even advanced traders, will use 2%. I personally only risk 1% of my capital. But 2% is fine. So if you have a $10,000 account, you're only going to risk 2%, which means you're only going to risk $200 per trade. And you see how this will ebb and flow with the amount of capital you have. Obviously, if you had a $100,000 account, you could be risking $2,000 per trade. So it's all going to be differently decided upon how much capital you have. And this is the beginning of starting to have some structure. So many traders don't even take this into consideration when they trade. It doesn't matter what market they're trading, whether they're going long or short. They just say, oh, I'm going to buy it. And say, well, what are you risking? Okay, so only risk 2% of your capital. And conservative traders will also want to include slippage, meaning that the way the currency pairs are structured and the way that the market's a bid and ask, you have this type of spread issue. And a lot of that will take that into account. Many times you'll take into account 3 to even 5 pips, knowing that that's the spread that you're getting, the slippage you're giving up per each trade. So it's up to you if you want to take that into account. All right, so now we know how much percent of capital we're willing to risk per trade. Our benchmark is 2%. All right, so let's go into the position sizing formula. This is the RPS method. You may want to write this down. You don't have to if you don't want to. Maybe something where you can have just a piece of paper so you'll be able to study. I'm going to show you a lot of examples throughout this presentation where you'll probably be able to understand it a lot easier. But let's go through the rules here. Only 5 rules, but first of all, we want to determine the 2% risk amount of your capital. That's rule number 1. So remember, it doesn't matter how much capital you have. If you have 5,000 or if you have 500,000, doesn't matter. We just know that out of how much we have to trade with, we're only going to risk 2% of that per each trade. All right. So each trade gets 2% of that. All right. Now, the second rule is we have to decide our stop placement. Now, this has nothing to do with how much capital we have. Your stop placement should always, I repeat, always come from the chart. In other words, so many traders for some reason will say, well, I'm risking only $1,000 and I'll place my stop down 1,000 where I would lose $1,000. In specialist trading, that doesn't make any sense because the market doesn't know how much you're willing to risk or what your capital size is. The market just goes off the charts. In other words, if there's support or resistance, or if there's some type of uptrend line or downtrend. In other words, place your stop determined off of either the most recent high or most recent low or any other type of stop placement. We have roughly upwards of 7 different stop placements to pick and choose from at specialist trading. So you can choose whichever one you want, but you must decide in advance where you're going to place your stop. Okay? It has nothing to do, once again, with your risk or how much you're willing to risk. It has all to do with what the chart looks like. All right. Now, rule number 3. If you were stopped out at that chart point, what would be the total dollar amount lost per lot? So in other words, if you're trading one lot, either a mini lot or a standard currency pair lot, it doesn't matter. How much would you lose if you were stopped out, if you bought one lot, one contract? Okay, would you lose $50? Would you lose $500? Would you lose $1,000? Doesn't matter. Just how much would you lose if you thought in advance that you were stopped out? All right? All right, so now that you have that dollar amount, how much you would have lost, you're going to divide your 2% dollar risk. Remember, this is 2% of your account by your total dollar stopped out loss amount. In other words, if you had, let's say 2% equaled $1,000, and if you got stopped out, your stop out per lot would be 500. You're going to divide 1,000 by 500. Okay? Remember, this is a little wordy. It'll make more sense when I show you some chart examples and make it a little simpler. And so once you divide the dollar risk, the 2%, by your total stopped out dollar loss amount, meaning if you got stopped out, you'll divide them and you'll get a number and just round off to the nearest number for your proper position size. This will give you the formula of how many lots you should be trading, all right, once you divide one by the other. As I said, you may want to write this down. I'll give you just a few seconds just to write it down, but I'm going to show you an actual simpler way here in the next slide, which will make it a lot easier to understand. Plus, we're going to give you a lot of examples as well. All right, let's go to the next slide. This is the RPS position sizing formula, more of a mathematical formulation. In other words, R, as we see here, equals 2% risk amount of capital. It doesn't matter how much capital you have, whether you have 10,000 or 100,000, we're only going to risk 2%. P equals the pip dollar loss if stopped out. So if we lost 50 pips, if we lost 100 pips, if we lost 5 pips, how much would that transfer over into dollars? All right. Now we're going to divide R by P, and this will give us S. And S is the size or number of lots to trade. Okay, so R divided by P will equal S. The risk amount of our capital divided by the pip dollar loss will give us our size. And we're just going to round off to the nearest number to give us our position size. This is a formula that you must calculate prior to every trade. And you cannot change while you're in the trade. Well, I'm going to add a couple of more lots, or I'm going to take off. Boy, I bought too many. You can't do that. You have to have a plan. You have to, treat this like a business. It's not complicated. It may seem a little wordy now, but it really isn't. It's very simple. And after a few days of practice, I'm sure you'll be able to do this in like less than 20 or 30 seconds. All right, so let's take an example here. So now we can see how to actually figure it out in the real world. And we're going to take some older examples. It really doesn't matter if these charts are up to date or whatever. This is one of the few presentations where I'm not going to be concerned about having a chart that is a couple of days old or a week old, because we're more concerned about how to apply this formula. So let's say we have a position size, an example here. Let's say our account, just to make things easy, is $100,000, okay? Just trust me. I don't assume that any of you are trading with that large of a size. But let's just assume it's 100,000, just so our math can be a lot easier. All right. So R equals 2% of that account, all right? So we're only going to risk per trade 2% of our 100,000. So what is 2% of 100,000? It's 2,000. All right, so that equals R. R equals 2,000. Okay, P. P equals the pip dollar loss if we were stopped out. So once we have our stop in place on the chart, which we'll go over in just a few seconds, we ask ourselves, okay, if I entered here, which was where I want to enter, and if I got stopped out at my stop, where I'm going to be placing my stop, how much would I lose? Now, in this example, let's say we lose 200 pips. All right, 200 pips equals $2,000 per one lot. We're talking about the large currency pair now, okay? So P equals 2,000. So now all we do is divide R by P, and that comes up with S, which would equal 1, meaning that we can only trade if we're going to be using these parameters of our account size or our stop placement. We can only be trading one lot to keep within the structure of this formula. So there, it's that simple. It's that easy, but you must know what your risk is prior to trading, which is 2% benchmark. You can trade 1% if you like, or I would say no more than 3%. But 2% is the standard benchmark. Then you must know where your stop placement is going to be. So you'll be able to calculate if you lost on the trade, how much you would be losing, dollar amount. And then you simply divide one by the other, and that gives you the size or number of lots to trade. It's that simple. But using this is such a powerful plan because you're really controlling your money. This is the basis for money management. So many people think that money management is really about where you place your stop or risk-reward ratio. Those are pieces of the puzzle. But really, money management is more about position size. It's really based. The foundation of money management is all about your position size. All right, so let's look at an example here on the euro dollar. Remember, this is an older chart. We're not concerned about it being current or not. We're more concerned about this formula. Remember, we have a theoretical $100,000 account. All right, so we look at the chart here, and we have kind of a trade plan in mind. So we're interested in getting involved in this. So we have to calculate our risk that we're going to be allocated per each trade. So we only risk 2%. So 2% of a $100,000 account equals $2,000. That equals R. All right. Now we go, and we have to determine where our stop would be. So if we wanted to enter right here, say our strategy or our plan says to go long right here, all right, well, we'd enter here. Where would we place our stop? Our stop would be right here, all right? So we have to say in advance, prior to pulling the trigger, if we entered here and immediately got stopped out, let's say it was just wrong right off the bat, how much would I lose if I traded one lot, all right? We're just, for all intents and purposes here, we're just using the full lot here, the full currency pair. Now, if we entered at this point and got stopped out immediately, our total loss would be 200 pips, all right? Okay, so if we're trading one lot, the standard lot of the euro dollar, and lost 200 pips, what would that come to in a dollar amount? That would equal $2,000, okay? So this is the P, this is the pip loss, $2,000. So now all we do is we simply divide R by P, and this tells us our size, which is one lot. So we know now that when we trade this tomorrow or in 30 seconds when we want to enter our order, if we go long, we're only going to use one lot. Even though we have a $100,000 account, see, this is where the real immaturity in trading comes. Someone could say, I have $100,000 to trade with. Boy, I'm going to buy 10 lots, or I'm going to buy 20. No, according to your plan here, you should only be buying one. This is the true foundation for money management. This is where we're adding structure. We're taking discretion and guesswork out of trading. You should only, using this plan, you should only be trading one lot. All right, so as we see here, actually it would have worked out, and you would have had a nice trade. It would have gone in your direction with one lot only, though. All right, see how this works? Let's look at another example now. Let's look at the British pound example. Once again, just to make things easier, we're looking at a $100,000 account. Now, remember, we're only going to risk 2%, which is $2,000. Our pip loss, if we were stopped out, would be 100 pips, according to this next example now. So our pip loss would be $1,000. 100 pips in the British pound is $1,000 if we traded one lot. So we simply divide R by P, which gives us our size. So 2,000 divided by 1,000 would equal 2. So we're going to be able to trade two lots on this particular trade. You see how the ebb and flow of how much our losses will be and how much account size we have and how much we're able to risk will change our amount of lots. You won't be trading with the same on each one. I mean, it's totally wrong to be saying on each trade, well, I only trade 2 per trade. That's my size. It's going to be changing with each and every trade according to your account size and also according to how much you're willing to risk, as well as where your stop's going to be. Let's look at this example in the British pound now. Once again, we have a theoretical $100,000 account. On this particular example, if we're using 2% risk of our $100,000 account, this once again gives us $2,000 to work with, right? Trading one lot roughly. All right, so we have to see what's our plan now. What do we want to do with the trade? We have $2,000 to work with. That's how much we're willing to lose or willing to risk on this. Well, we want to go short. We have a short idea here. Our particular strategy, our method tells us that we should go short if we trade at this point. All right, that's fine. No one knows if it's going to be right or wrong yet. And we have to ask ourselves, where are we going to place the stop? Well, in this particular method, it says to place your stop right here. All right, fine. Okay, looks just as good as anybody else's idea. Now, if we entered here and we got stopped out here trading one lot, one contract, how much would we lose dollar-wise? Well, this is 100 pips. So 100 pips losing on the British pound would equal $1,000. So R equals 2,000. P now equals 1,000. So we divide R by P, and that will give us our size of 2 lots. So in this particular trade, if we happen to go short, we can now trade 2 lots. You see how it's different now from the other example. Why? Because we have a different stop placement. We have a different loss. The P in the calculation is different from the first one. So if we went short here, we would have had a very nice trade. We would have had some nice money made here on 2 lots. Okay. Now, as your account size grows, you're going to see that your lot size will change. And if you happen to go into a series of losses, you go into a minor drawdown, well, your account size will change as well, and so will your lot size. So this is, once again, the basis for pure money management. It's not so much about where you place your stop. It's not so much about whether you're having risk-reward ratios or a percentage of winning trades. Real money management lies in your position size. That's why this is such an important presentation today. All right, now what if we used less risk? We've been talking about 2%. I told you I personally only use 1. When I first started out, I used 2 because I wanted to get more and more trades. But now, because I trade less and less and because I'm teaching more and more, I want to risk less, and I'm only risking about 1% of my capital. So let's say we risk only 1%. Well, we have a $100,000 account. Once again, we're looking at the same trade. And before, we had a stop of 100 pips. Now, if we risk 1%, now we only have $1,000 to work with because 1% of 100,000 is only 1,000. So if our pip loss, dollar loss comes out to 1,000, we divide 1 by 1, 1,000 by 1,000. Now we can only trade 1 lot. So do you see how it changed? Because I changed my risk amount, even though I placed my stop at the same place, even though I enter at the same place. Because I changed the amount I was willing to risk, I can only trade 1 lot. Now, it still worked out into a nice trade. We still had a very nice profit here, but I was only trading with 1 lot because I was risking less. Let's go even further. What if we used a different stop? All right, now that was with a smaller stop. What if we decided to use a larger stop? All right, we still have the same account on the British pound, 100,000. Now we're going to risk 2%, okay, which equals 2,000. So we have 2,000 to work with. And here's our original entry, but instead of placing our stop here, we want to go all the way back here. We want to give ourselves a little bit more room, all right? We feel that, even if we got stopped out here, it could go a little higher, but still the trade would turn out profitable. So we're going to place our stop way back here, all right? So now we have to calculate. If we entered here and got stopped out at these high levels, how much would we be risking in terms of pips? Well, that would equal 200 pips now. So instead of originally risking 100, we're now risking 200. So what does that transfer over into trading one of the large lots, the currency pairs? Well, 200 pips would equal a loss of $2,000. So we're willing to risk 2%, which equals 2,000. If we got stopped out on 1 lot, we would lose 2,000. So we divide R by P, which would equal 1. So with this new stop placement, we can still trade, but we can only trade 1 lot. And ultimately, it worked out fine again, but we've only used 1 lot in this particular trade, okay? Once again, you see how things change once the account size changes, once we decide how much we want to risk, once our stop placement changes. Let's go even a step further. What if we used a different stop with less risk? Now, we just showed you the example of a $2,000, or I should say a 2% risk. Let's use the same example, but now we only want to risk 1%. Maybe we're a little shaky. Maybe we're not really certain about whether this trade's going to work out. So we're saying, you know what, I'm only going to risk 1% from now on. Okay, that's fine. We have a $100,000 account. We're only risking 1% of that. What's 1% of $100,000? It's $1,000. Okay? So we have our stop placement up here. If we entered here and we got stopped out, how many pips would we lose? We'd lose 200. Okay? And if we had one lot of the large lot, what would that transfer over to? That would transfer over to $2,000 we'd lose. Okay? So if our amount to work with, to risk, is 1,000, and our pip loss would be 2,000, well, we divide 1,000 by 2,000, and it comes out to less than even 1. It comes out to 0.50. So this is telling you that with these parameters, you cannot take the trade. So do you see how the money management aspect comes into play? It's telling us that we have to sit on the sidelines. If we want to use these parameters, we cannot even take this trade. So this is the beauty of this formula. It tells you how many lots to trade. It tells you if you can be trading one or more, and it tells you if you couldn't be trading at all determined by your parameters that you put in. What I was saying before we got cut off, I hope everyone once again is hearing me okay. Where we were saying before was that this is such a great way because it's the foundation of money management. Money management, once again, is partially about stop placement. It's partially about risk-reward ratios, but really the foundation of money management is determining where your position sizing should be. So this is where I want you to get involved. This is where I promised you you'd have a little interaction with me. So let's start over. If you can hear me. And just before we start, one last time, I know someone had said it earlier, but I just want to make sure. Am I coming through loud and clear now? Because I really have no way, as I stated, to make sure. So just give me a thumbs up if you're hearing me okay. And yes? Okay, good. I don't want to continue for the next 10 minutes and not for you not to be able to hear or see anything. All right, so let's start out real quickly. Once again, this will make more sense. Let's start off again. If we went over this, just a real quick review. Here's what I want you to do. First of all, you're probably going to need some type of either a piece of pencil and paper or a hand calculator. But I want you to figure this out for yourself. This is where the interaction comes, and this is how you get practice. Let's say we have a theoretical $50,000 account, and our trade is in the Canadian dollar. All right, so let's go through the formula now. We're only going to be risking 2% of that $50,000. Now, I'm not going to figure it out for you. This is where I want the interaction, so I want to see that you're able to get this. Remember, specialist trading is an educational site. I don't just want to give you all the answers. I really want to teach you to do this on your own. So you have to determine what 2% of your risk amount of your capital. So if your capital is $50,000, what is 2% of that? Okay. Then we're going to determine where we're going to place our stop if we got stopped out. Then we're also going to determine the number of lots to trade according to this plan we have here. All right, so this is what we need to know. We have a $50,000 account. Let's look at the actual trade here. This is in the Canadian dollar. Once again, this is an older chart, a theoretical example, but let's just say we had a signal, regardless of the strategy, regardless if it's one of ours or it's yours, it doesn't matter. We have a $15,000 account. And at this present, what I checked today, this morning, the dollar amount per pip of the Canadian dollar was $9.67. So let's use that as a benchmark, okay? All right, so we have a $50,000 account. We want to determine our 2% risk, all right? So that's the first thing you have to do. What is 2% of 50,000? Now, let's say we want to enter right here at 1.0375. All right, so that's where we're going to be entering, at 1.0375. But we need to know how much we lose if we got stopped out. So in other words, in order to know where we're going to get stopped out, we have to have a stop placement. So let's say our first stop on this example here, on this little exercise, is at 1.320. All right. So if we know 2% of 50,000, and we entered at 1.0375 and got stopped out at 1.0320, how many pips will we lose, and what does that transfer over into a dollar amount? Okay, so here's your little, information about what each pip is worth. Okay, so if we entered at 0.0375 and got stopped out at 0.0320, how many pips we lose, and then we simply multiply that amount of pips by this. All right. Now, since we know what our 2% is, and since we know how much we're willing to risk per our account, and now we know how many pips we lose, we have all the information we need here. How many lots can we be trading? All right. Are you able to figure that out? On this particular assignment here, this one little exercise, go ahead and this is probably one of the few webinars where I ask for interaction within my students, and go ahead and tell me exactly how many lots would we be able to trade. If you aren't able to figure that out, remember, we're only going to be risking 2% of 50,000. So you have to determine what 2% of 50,000 is. After you've determined what 2% of 50,000 is, you have to determine what the dollar amount would be if you got stopped out trading one lot. Okay? If you got stopped out, now you have the two portions of the formula, and that will give you the answer. Are you still figuring this out? Anyone know yet? Or hopefully I'm still on the air and we haven't got bumped. I see some people are typing. Okay, let's see here. FX Trader says 1.88 per lot. Remember that? I'll wait to see if someone else. I see that Market Timer also is also typing, and so is Boyke. So I'll wait to see what everyone comes up with, and then we'll decide. Remember I hope you wrote down what the actual formula was, so that you kind of have an idea. Okay. All right, everybody in there. I have one more person typing, so I'll give you just a few more minutes. Remember the three-part formula we talked about, okay? JP is typing as well, so we'll wait just a few more seconds and then we can figure this out. As you can see, I'm calculating myself. We'll give you just a few more seconds here. Remember, we don't want to go over time. Okay, why don't we begin here? First part of the calculation is our 2% risk. So we have to determine what is 2% of 50,000. Most of you got that correctly. 2% of 50,000 is $1,000. All right, so that basically just means how much we have to work with on this one trade. Remember, that's just per trade. It doesn't mean for the entire day how many trades you want to take. Just per trade, per setup, you have $1,000 to work with. All right. Now, if we entered here at 0.0375 and got stopped out at 0.0320, how many pips would we lose? We would lose 55 pips. Okay? That's how many pips would we lose. What does that come out to dollar amount? Well, each pip equals 9.67. So if we lost 55 pips times 9.67, that comes out to $531.85. So that's how much we would lose trading one lot. So we have the two portions of the formula. We have $1,000 divided roughly by 532. Okay? And what does that come out? That comes out to 1.88, which is pretty much what FX Trader got, 1.88 per lot. Now we just round that out because we can't trade 1.88 lots. So we round that out, and that gives us 2. So in this particular setup, prior to the entry, we know that we can trade 2 lots with all of these parameters. Okay? That's the way it works. Let's take a different scenario. Instead of using stop number 1, we're now going to use stop number 2. Okay? Same parameters. We have a $50,000 account. We're only going to be risking 2%. But this time, if we enter here at 0.0375 and we got stopped out at 0.0150, if we put that into the calculation, how many lots can we trade? Okay? I'll give you a few seconds to figure that out. It should be a little easier once that we've figured out and we know how to use this for stop placement number 1. What if we wanted to give ourselves a little bit more room and really have a wide stop there? How many lots could we be trading? Okay? I'll give you a few seconds to type that in. FX Trader says 0 lots. We'll see some more people coming in here. We'll see. We'll just make sure that everyone has that correctly. And while some other people may be typing or figure that out, let's just take it step by step. We have a $50,000 account. We're only going to risk 2%. 2% is the same. It's still going to be $1,000. So we have $1,000 to play with, regardless of where we decide to put our stop. So we have $1,000. If we entered here at 375, and got stopped out at 150, how many pips are we losing? We're losing 225 pips, all right? So we'd lose 225 pips. So how does that calculate in $2? Well, 225 times 9.67 equals roughly 2175, okay? So this means that we divide 1,000 by 2175, and FX Trader is exactly right. We only have no money to trade with. We cannot use this formula according to those calculations. So we have no lots to trade. We will not even be in this trade. So this is basically telling us with those parameters, entering here and exiting here, we cannot trade. So we have to stay out of the trade. We either have to look for another one, or we have to use a different stop placement or different parameters. Okay? All right, so let's review, because I think we're coming towards the end here, and I just want to make sure you get some more information. By the way, this would have turned out into a nice trade regardless. All right, let's review. Remember, please never ever use discretion when deciding on share size. The worst thing you can do. So many traders lose money, not because their strategy is wrong or because they're on the wrong side. Many times their strategies will work, but they have the wrong position size. They're losing far too much and using too much of their capital. So make sure your trading is adequately capitalized prior to entry. As a benchmark, risk only on average 2% per trade. That's it. You can maybe go at the highest 3%. To really be conservative, try only 1%. All right? The RPS method is a simple mathematical formula that must be used prior to every trade. Why? Because it automatically decides how many lots to trade. Our edge here, which I'm trying to teach you today, is to add structure to your trading so that you can take the guesswork out. You never really want to be guessing where you should be getting in, where you should be getting out, and especially you should never guess how many lots to trade. All right, so let's recap. We showed you how to properly calculate risk. 2% is the benchmark, and then we showed you the RPS method. Now, in summing up here, remember I stated at the very beginning of the presentation that Specialist Trading is an educational company. We're the premier online source for education in Forex trading. Okay? We're not simply generating signals. We're not simply just telling you where to buy and sell. I want you to understand the process. As you can see here today, even though we got cut off, it really means a lot to me that you understand what I'm teaching so that you can use it on your own, so that you really don't need to rely on someone's giving you signals or someone telling you where to buy or sell. You can put all the pieces of the puzzle together yourself and trade on your own. That's really, in my opinion, the definition of success. Now, in order to use the RPS method properly, you're going to need a strategy that, at least you feel confident with that works. Now, just let me spend a few seconds here talking about our premier strategy for Forex traders. That's strategy number 5, as you can see here. Just real quickly, this strategy has generated 150% in less than 2 years. Detailed instruction comes with 10 videos. We tell you exactly where to place your entries, exits, and stops, so therefore you know exactly how to calculate the RPS method. This comes with 1-year trade signal alerts, but remember, we don't just want to feed you the alerts. We want you to understand, so we give you these alerts for a year so that you can figure out and see if you're in line with what we're seeing. We also give you 1 year of weekly trading lessons. Those are webinars that I record for my members each and every week. PDFs of the rules and personal email access so that you can contact me anytime you like. Now, this has produced 115% in less than 2 years. Now, this course usually runs for $5.95. For FX Street, we're reducing it for a limited time only down to $3.45. And someone would say, well, wow, $3.45, I don't really have that much money to be using. How do I know how well this works? Well, let me just show you some very current signals that were generated this past month. Here's a signal we generated in the British pound on the 22nd of May. As you can see here, it quickly went down in the next 2 weeks, 400 pips. Here's another signal in the Canadian dollar. Once again, you can use the RPS method to decide how many lots you want to be trading, whether these are mini or whether these are large accounts. And then these are current. Now, I'm asked to leave here because we have to hurry up because I know there's probably some more people. So just want to give you that information once again about the Microsite if you want more information, or you can simply go to these places right here, okay? This is our website. This is also the information to contact us. Sorry about the delay here today. There were some problems with the HotCom service. Sorry about that. Once again, copy this information down. If there are any questions, since we're being asked to leave here, you can simply reach us by emailing or by calling. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.